Hello there, Star Wars fans, and welcome to another Order 66 Toys video. And today we are doing our live Q&A with Mr. Timothy Zahn. He has been spending his time here with us this weekend for our 8th celebration here at Order 66 Toys. This is our 8th anniversary. It's very, very special, and we are very, very happy to celebrate it here with Mr. Timothy Zahn this weekend. So the way this is going to work is you guys are going to comment your questions, and we'll do our best to get to as many of them as possible. This is going to go on until about 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. So if you guys are ready, we're ready to start accepting questions. Mr. Zahn and I will discuss your questions, with him mostly talking, of course, because you don't really want to hear it from me. And
you can hear from him anytime.
Exactly. You get to hear from me enough. And Miss Allie over here is going to do her absolute best to interpret as efficiently as possible. So, do we have any questions?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Is there anything you would like to say?
I could answer a question nobody's asked, but we'll wait for questions to come in. It's fun being here.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What, if any, interactions have you had with George Lucas?
I met George just one time, back in, it was 1992 or 3. I was at Skywalker Ranch talking to the book liaison person from Lucasfilm, and she was able to sneak me and my family in to see George for a few minutes. So we didn't talk that much. He talked mostly about filmmaking in the modern era, and it was very interesting, but I never got a chance to see him after that.
We have our first couple questions, as a matter of fact. First question is, what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Favorite Star Wars movie, hands down, is The Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back. There you go.
That's a very popular film.
It is.
I hear it's well loved amongst many people.
Though apparently it got its share of criticism when it first came out.
Right.
I also hear it's one of George's least favorite films, or at least at the time he didn't like it.
Well, wasn't it also his least involved in the original
think so
trilogy?
Too, which is not to say that's the reason, but it could be one of the reasons why it's one of the best of the saga.
Sergio Barraza asked, how did you come up with the character? I'm assuming he means Thrawn. I know we've discussed that yesterday a couple times.
We can discuss it for the audience here. When I was first offered the books that became the Thrawn trilogy, I knew that I wanted a villain who was different from Vader and the Emperor. So as I thought about it, I decided a more dangerous villain is someone who can lead through loyalty, because the troops will fight for him whether he's in the room or not. So I started thinking about the qualities that make troops loyal to someone, a leader. He has to be a strategic and tactical genius, so they know they will probably win whatever battle he sends them into. Has to be willing to take suggestions from subordinates, not have his ego bound up in things. Knows enough to break off a battle if it looks like he's losing. Don't waste troops. Pull out and pick a different time and place for the next battle. And finally, because the Emperor didn't seem to like non-humans in his upper ranks of his military, make Thrawn a non-human, because if he can become a Grand Admiral, he must be something very special. And that was a starting point for then fleshing out the character of Thrawn.
Cool.
Another really cool thing to your point about Thrawn listening to his troops is he also, in his character, he also takes the time to teach his troops, not just the officers, but even the under-ranking forces as well, and also challenges them to figure out his plans as well. So they're also learning and gaining tactical knowledge through his example.
A lot of people compare Thrawn to Sherlock Holmes because of the observation, deduction, etc. The big difference is that Holmes was never patient with people. He was always impatient with people who couldn't see things as well as he could. As you said, Thrawn is different in that if you are teachable, if you want to learn, he will take the time to teach you. And that makes him not only different from Holmes, but again, a quality of a good leader, because he is training up people to think and to act and be as good a commander as he is. So he has a legacy going on from where he starts.
Awesome. Isaac Garza asks, were there ever any talks with LFL on adapting Thrawn trilogy into films?
I have no idea what thoughts Lucasfilm has. No, if anybody has ever had thoughts of that sort, they have not talked to me about it.
Stuart Holcomb says, how did you feel when Disney basically erased Mara Jade and all of your other work?
It's not really erased. It's a matter of Lucasfilm decided to make more movies, more TV shows, and so they looked at all the stories that had come before, all the characters that had been done, like Thrawn, Mara, Kip Durant, all the other characters, and said, okay, we're making new movies. Everybody off the stage while we decide what we're going to do. And then where we have places for you, we'll invite you back on. So Thrawn has been brought back into canon because they had a good spot for him. As they decide what they're going to do in the future, I expect to see more characters from the Legends books, maybe more storylines coming back into canon. Bear in mind that in order to decide what was canon and what wasn't canon in the Legends, they would have had to know exactly what they wanted to do with Star Wars for the next 50 years. Even the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't set up that far ahead. So they came up with, I think, the best compromise they could. They put the legend stories into the realm of Robin Hood or King Arthur, the legends we tell around campfires, the stories we tell around campfires. And I think this is about the best compromise anybody could have come up with.
Cool. Jonathan McKeerley, who is local here, asked, how much do you hate The Last Jedi?
I don't hate any of the Star Wars movies.
How can you hate them? Pizza is pizza. Even if it's bad pizza, it's still pizza.
Exactly. But it's still, I see the movies, what I see in movies a lot, not just Star Wars movies, is this could have been better. The internal logic could have been tighter. The characters could have been better developed. Some of the storyline could have made more sense. And this is an occupational hazard of being a writer. I do see all of these things.
Did that thing just pop off? All right.
It just came off.
You're good. I got it.
I do this with movies, TV shows, books. I can't turn off my brain and enjoy something without analyzing it. And sometimes I wish I could. But it's not a matter of this is something I hate. It's a matter of it could have been better. I wish it had been better. But they're movies. They're fun things. There are things in this world to hate. Slavery, genocide. Don't waste your emotion on something that is just fun and entertaining. And certainly don't pick on people who have different views than you do. We're all in this together. We're all Star Wars fans.
We're all just nerds.
Yeah.
We got to stick together.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point in Last Jedi when Luke looks out over the side, and at his foot, it appears to be a tombstone.
It's not Last Jedi.
Oh, what was that?
It's Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. And he looks out, and there was a tombstone there, and everyone was assuming that was Mara Jade's tombstone. And we were so excited just to get a glimpse of the tombstone, to be able to bring her, hopefully they would bring her back into canon because of that. So.
The rumors have been going ever since, before Lucasfilm was bought by Disney. My take at this point is, if you do not see it on StarWars.com, don't believe it.
I mean, even the Jaina and Jason figures, when they brought those out, the 6-inch.
There's no Jason figure.
Or the Jaina Solo 6-inch.
But even that, it says Legends on it.
Explicitly labeled Legends.
Yes.
There are only two. There's Jaina Solo, and then there's an Imperial Shadowrun. So the consensus is among some people that Revan is very likely, who's another Old Republic character, but very popular. He's very likely canon because his package
Welcome
is
back
not
as we just adjusted our tripod.
Working on it. Trying to get Rex in frame.
There we go.
There you go. How's that? That's better.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Technical difficulties, please bear with us.
Yeah, they're used to me goofing around with the camera.
We'll clean it in post.
Isaac Garza asks, is Thrawn Force sensitive?
No.
No, he's just super intelligent.
Yes. As far as I've ever known, he is not Force sensitive. Bear in mind, Disney or Lucasfilm could change that at any time, but I don't want him to be Force sensitive. We have enough Force sensitive people in Star Wars. It's good to see someone who can go up against a Jedi like Luke without Force powers.
There you go. Joey Barr, who's a good friend of the store here, he helps us out with a lot of our AV stuff. He said, who's your favorite character to write? Is it an original character you created or an existing saga character?
For my own characters, Thrawn and Mara Jade are the most enjoyable to write. The legacy characters, kind of a toss-up between Han and young Obi-Wan.
Really?
I have not done enough Obi-Wan. I would like to do... One of the books I would like to propose whenever Lucasfilm gets tired of Thrawn would be right after Episode 3. Ignore his signing, whatever he's doing.
What's his own book?
I've always assumed that after Obi-Wan dropped Luke off on Tatooine, he went off halfway across the Empire and started making a very loud nuisance of himself to draw attention away from Tatooine until that trail had gone cold, so that no one would think to look for Luke there. I would really like to do a book of Obi-Wan making a nuisance of himself.
That would be really
I
fun.
bet he could do a really good job of it.
That would be very cool.
What is your favorite? This is Joel Edgo Gawa. What is your favorite Sherlock Holmes story?
I haven't read them for a while. Oh, there are so many. I tend to prefer his short stories over the short novels. Of the novels, probably Valley of Fear, I think is the name, or Hound of the Baskervilles. But there are a couple of short stories I like better. The short ones, of course, have to be more tightly plotted. I could look through the list and pick them out, but I can't pull up names right away. But
Sure.
yes, I read the Sherlock Holmes stories. We've got the complete collection once every year or two.
Cool. Let's see. This is Sergio Barraza. When creating the character Thrawn, you chose his ability to understand alien races with art. What drew you to that choice?
That was just something that came about in the development process of the character. I thought it would be sort of Jedi-like. A Jedi can use the Force, but no one else really understands it. Thrawn can read a species through its artwork, but no one else really understands that. So it's kind of a riff on the Jedi-Force relationship. There was not some huge revelation of, oh, this would be cool, just, oh, this would be cool, as I went along.
Awesome. Jared Jordan asked, he said, I haven't read the new Thrawn books yet. Do you go into why Thrawn becomes so loyal to the Empire?
It is hinted at in the novel Thrawn. Yes, there are indications as to why he is doing what he does, why he has aligned himself with the Empire. So yeah, they come near the end of the book, but you do get some understanding.
Nice. Cameron Justice says, "What's next? What is next for you in the world of Star Wars?"
What is next for me is something I've been doing in Star Wars for the last 5 or 6 months, waiting for Lucasfilm. I have some proposals. I have some ideas for Thrawn and Ezra post the Rebels season 4. The problem is at the moment that Dave Filoni has first crack at those characters in that era. Until Dave figures out what he wants to do, I can't make any proposals. And Dave has about 200 projects, I think, ongoing at this point, maybe only 2 or 3.
Might as well be 200.
It might as well be 200. So I'm not, unfortunately, expecting any answer on that anytime soon. But if he decides not to do something, or if he tells us what he wants to do and I can squeeze the story in, Dave, give me 2 months. If I can have 2 months, I can fit in the story I want to tell. But until he decides what he's doing, there's not much I can do except wait.
Cool. James Boggs says, "What is your favorite movie in any genre?" I'm getting tongue-tied.
Picking out favorite movies. Empire Strikes Back is one of my favorites. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Princess Bride, The Usual Suspects, Yojimbo, Japanese samurai movie, Seven Samurai. We have racks full of Blu-rays and DVDs at home, which I will bring out once a year, once every 2 years, and play while I'm walking my treadmill for exercise.
Right on. Gustav Lenander says, he's all the way from Sweden. He just ordered a book from us. Which is your favorite clone or Jedi from the Clone Wars?
Probably safest answer is, yeah. Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
All right, so what's the actual answer?
Again, I really like young Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars. I really like the interaction. Obviously, the development of Ahsoka and her relationship with Anakin was a central feature of that, and I very much liked the way they built that relationship and they grew it. The three of them have that very nice give and take, working together, sometimes working separately. I was also very pleased, she's not a Jedi, but Padme, watching her be developed and do things in the Clone Wars. She really didn't get that much to do in the prequel trilogy. I was very glad to see them expanding her character. And so when they told me I could use Padme in Thrawn alliances, I jumped at that chance.
Cool. Fernando says, how did Vader know Luke was his son if he could not sense Leia was his daughter in episode 4? In your opinion?
My opinion is Luke is training. He's becoming more of a Jedi. I think of it sort of like turning on a light bulb, that you get see more of the light, but your light extends outward, and other Jedi or Sith would be able to see it. Leia was much more latent power. She hadn't developed it by that time, and she would simply have been less of a light source for Vader or the Emperor to pick up on.
So basically, she just didn't shine as bright in the Force quite yet.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cameron asks, what is your take on the interpretation of Thrawn and Rebels?
I liked very much what they did. The Rebels crew, Dave Filoni, all their writers, grew up with the Thrawn trilogy. That was part of their Star Wars experience. So when they made the pitch for Thrawn to be in Rebels, they understood the character, they understood how to write for him, they understood how you defeat him, and they really did a good job. There are some examples in the series that shine extremely brightly. Hera's Heroes is one of my favorites for watching Thrawn, seeing things, deducing things, acting the way Thrawn would act. But I was very pleased with what they had done, what they did with them.
Kevin Moore asks, are we going to see more books like Angel Mess?
I like doing standalone books. Publishers do not necessarily like them. They like the built-in audience that you get with a series. I have a couple of books in mind that one would be a sequel to the Icarus Hunt. The other would be a book set in the Conquerors trilogy universe, picking up after those three books. Those would be standalones, not exactly Angel Mass, but they would be standalone books. And I'm just waiting for a hole in my writing schedule to be able to pitch those to my agent and see if he will, where he could sell them.
Jason asks, was Form B from Survivor's Quest really Thrawn? Mara hinted at it to Luke at the end.
No, Form B was not Thrawn, but there was a hint that there might be somebody advising him from off camera. I have ways of bringing Thrawn back in that era if Lucasfilm ever wanted him to be in that era. The authors are very good at spackling, fixing things, finding ways around stuff we've done. So if Lucasfilm wanted to bring Thrawn back in that era, I know how I would do it.
Nice. Ashley Bray asks, she was here yesterday to see, will we find out what Eli Vanto's been up to? Trying not to be too spoilery, even though Thrawn's been out a while.
Thank you for avoiding spoilers. I would like to bring Eli back. I have story ideas in mind, but again, that whole post-Rebels area is at the moment off limits to me.
Sure.
But I do have plans for Eli. I have ideas for Admiral Aralani as well. I would like to visit the Chiss Ascendancy, see what's going on there, which is probably not necessarily good things happening. But again, all of that is waiting on the folks in the Presidio.
My mother asks,
Hi, Mom.
hi Mom, does Mr. Zahn collect any figures? And if so, what is your area of interest?
Collect any figures?
Like action figures?
I don't collect them per se, but people do give them to me occasionally, and I have several. I've got spots on my brag shelf where they tend to sit and look over my shoulder while I'm writing.
Is it mostly characters you've created?
Mostly, yes. Mostly it's Thrawn figures, Umara figures. I've got the Chimera that Fantasy Flight put out, or was it Armada?
That's very recent.
Yes, and various things like that. But I do get other characters as well. Mostly though my creations.
Nice.
Somebody did a friend of ours did a Ken doll as the Barbie and Ken into a talent card. So that's one sitting on the shelf as well. Extra hair and drawn in beard and stuff.
Drawn in beard. Joel asks, have you ever wanted to write an Indiana Jones story?
Indy would be fun to write, yes. Nobody has approached me about anything like that. I don't know if they're doing much in the way of books for Indy. Maybe when the next movie comes out, there will be some demand, and we'll see what they're interested, if anything, in me doing.
Heather McEnroe, who I think her son was here yesterday, said, not a question, but just a comment. Thank you so much for keeping your books appropriate for many ages. You've become my son's favorite Star Wars author due to quality and bonus. You keep the material free of superfluous clutter.
Thank you. I mean, one of the things about Star Wars is it tends to be PG-13, which was always my style to begin with. So there was no translation I have to do between my original books and Star Wars books. So, and I've had parents thank me for writing books they didn't have to vet for their teenagers or preteens.
Right.
So I'm glad to do it.
Jason asks, since the First Order comes from the unknown region, is there a possible connection between the First Order and the Empire of the Hand?
Well, Empire of the Hand is legend, so I don't know if they would let me bring that back in. My tendency at this point would be to think there's no real connection. That if the Empire of the Hand does exist, it probably is not really connected with the First Order. But again, all of that is up to Lucasfilm. They can change, they can make that decision anytime they want to.
Gustav from Sweden says, which is your favorite lightsaber?
For historical purposes, Luke's original one.
Luke's original.
Yeah.
Nice. The chosen one saber.
Yeah.
So Anakin's, Rey's. Cool. Heather McEnroe says, son wants to know, at the end of Thrawn, he joined the Empire to keep the galaxy together in the face of an unspeakable threat. Do we get to know more about this in the future? Will the Yuuzhan Vong come back to haunt us?
I don't know whether the Vong are going to be brought back into canon. What the dangers are that Thrawn is seeing. See earlier comment about waiting on Lucasfilm to let me do future books. But yeah, I have some ideas in mind. I have some thoughts and plans, but all of it is on hold at the moment while we wait for Lucasfilm to make decisions on the era I would need to write this in.
Cool. Kyle says, I love the connection between Luke and Leia and Heir to the Empire. What was your favorite aspect of Luke while writing the character?
The thing, what I liked doing with Luke in the original Thrawn trilogy was he now is a Jedi, and he has to still learn what that means. What do I do as a Jedi? That was one reason at the very beginning of that series, I had Obi-Wan come to him as a Force ghost and say goodbye. I didn't want Luke to have anybody he could ask for advice. And he's still figuring out what he's doing. As are most of us, no matter where we are in life, there's a lot of figuring out what you're doing in a new situation. One of the things I always missed in the Star Wars movies was good family relationships. Everybody is pretty dysfunctional. Granted, a lot of that was manipulated by Palpatine, but I was hoping with the sequel trilogy we would have something along the line of The Incredibles, where you have a family that squabbles but pulls together when necessary. one of the fun things about the Thrawn trilogy was having Luke and Leia really be good brother and sister, and having a family relationship that worked well. And I try to do that later on with Leia and Han, Luke and Mara, other characters. Just, this is how a family can be. It's not always your mom is a slave and you're hauled off to the Jedi Academy.
Have you ever, just a personal question, have you ever looked into the legacy era of Star Wars?
Which era specifically?
It's, what is it? It's like 100 years after.
It's about a century
after that.
Yeah. They have Cade Skywalker
Yes, I've
and all
heard
that.
a little bit about that. I've not read any of the books, but I doubt any of us would be allowed to do anything there while they're still plotting out the timeline of Lucasfilm.
It's one of my favorite parts is that Luke is now the Force Ghost that is helping Cade out. So, what are your thoughts? This is from Kevin. What are your thoughts on Ron Howard's directing Solo?
I enjoyed the movie. It was a very much a popcorn movie like the original New Hope was. Just fun to sit there, watch it, some good dialogue, some fun little set pieces. I enjoyed Solo very much. Also enjoyed Rogue One, although obviously downer of an ending.
Right.
Come on, guys, even Seven Samurai, 3 of them lived. Come on. But yeah, I enjoyed Solo. I don't know where Ron Howard picked up, how much he redid. We'll never see what the original directors had done. But yeah, very, very much enjoyed the story. I would like to see a sequel. I'd like to see where some of the characters went after that, Akira particularly. It seems to me that Han is still too optimistic at the end of Solo for what we saw in A New Hope. However, we've got several years of being under Jabba's thumb to beat that out of him. And that would be a very interesting story, to how Jabba, working for Jabba, stuck under Jabba, beats the optimism, the idealism out of him, or almost out of him, until Luke and Leia revive it in A New Hope.
Joseph James asked, when is Thrawn going to make his movie debut, and who do you think should play him?
Why did I know that question was coming at some point? I have no idea if they will ever bring Thrawn into live action. As to actor, I see the characters in terms of personality, attitude, not so much face and voice. So I am not the person to ask about casting. However, the names that have most often come up with this question are Benedict Cumberbatch, who I always thought was too young, but having seen him as Doctor Strange, I think he would work fine with that. Jason Isaacs, someone was suggesting John Hamm yesterday.
Yep.
What was the other one?
Hugo Weaving was my suggestion.
Hugo Weaving was suggested.
Jeremy Irons.
Carl Urban, Lars Mikkelsen himself, who did the voice for Thrawn in Rebels. He doesn't have to duplicate the voice, he's already got it. And I've always rather liked Jeremy Irons. So, but any actor who can capture the presence, the observational ability of Thrawn would probably do just fine.
Mr. Tim Holmes asked, what was it that inspired you to writing fiction as a career, and did you have a previous career that had nothing to do with that?
I did not yet have a career. I was working as a grad student in physics when, in 1975, I turned off a bad TV show, and I said, I could write a better story than that. So, over the next 2 weeks, I sat down in my spare time and wrote out a story, which was not very good, but it was fun. So I decided to keep at that as a hobby for a while. sold my first story in December of 1978. Sold my second story in July of '79. The day I also learned that my thesis advisor had died of a heart attack overnight, leaving me with a project that was not working and was never going to work. There was a basic flaw in the logic of it. So I worked with a new professor for a semester, decided I was having more fun writing, and in January 1980, I quit the physics department and started writing full time. So far, it seems to be working.
Think you'll ever get published?
The physics department was not happy about my decision, but I learned in the years after that they did, in their case of publications by alumni, they had included some of my books.
Oh.
So I guess they came around.
Guess so. Jesse Grimes says, I'm going to call it now in episode 9. Thrawn and Ezra heard Leia's distress call and show up in a very war-torn Chimera to assist.
Oh, I would see that movie.
I think everybody that's watching this video would see that movie.
Hopefully you would get to then the go-ahead to write about the journey between how they became allies, if that's what happens.
I have that story in mind, just waiting.
I believe you.
Dawn Alliance is 2. This time it's personal.
Electric Boogaloo.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac asks, do you remember what the experience of seeing Star Wars in theater was like, for the first time was like for you?
Yes, very much. It was the second night. I couldn't make it the first night. I was working on my thesis. The crawl comes up. We pan down. Leia's ship goes by. Star Destroyer starts chasing. And just keeps coming. And keeps coming. And keeps coming. It was the first time I had ever had a real sense of size in a movie. And by the time it ended and the engines appeared, I knew I was going to like this movie a lot. I saw it 17 or 18 times in the theater after that.
Wasn't that scene almost directly taken from 2001 though? Of course, I'm a big proponent.
We have the Discovery going past that way, but it didn't have the same feel for me, having seen that, as the Star Destroyer did.
Cool.
But yeah, that's an interesting point. But I've read that Lucas knew this was the make or break moment. If people laughed, they lost the audience. If they did like I did and just, wow, you had them. And most of us went, wow.
Heinrich, one of our friends from Denmark, I believe, he said, if they were to make a Thrawn live-action movie, where would you like the timeline to take place?
There are lots of options. My big concern would be that they do Thrawn correctly. The Rebels team understood him, understood how to write him, and built good stories around him. I'm not sure everybody in Hollywood would understand the character enough to do it right. And I would really love to be involved, but probably wouldn't be, so I would probably see it the same time everybody else did.
Man, it would have to involve you. That would be such a huge mistake not to.
I agree, but this is their call. I do have one big advantage over a lot of people. When a new movie comes out, we are on the West Coast in Oregon. Our son is in Florida. He will see whatever movie it is 3 hours before we can see it, and he can feed us a review. If it's a yes, go see the midnight showing, or sleep in and go see it on Saturday matinee. So we have instant review capabilities in our family.
Heinrich said you would have to be the writer.
I would love to be involved. part of the problem is that Hollywood people don't think novelists know how to write for movies or TV. And in a lot of cases, they're right. It's a very different medium. In books, we can get into the characters' minds. In a movie, it's all action and dialogue. You have to craft it that way. However, I think some of the best movies have been where you have the author of the book teamed up with someone who understands movies and is a script writer, and they work together.
I would think
That would be the role I would like to be, as advisor, help with story creation, etc.
I would think that just with your style of writing, it would translate very easily. Your writing is very cinematic, in my opinion.
Well, I've done some comic books, which is kind of halfway to movies. You do get thought bubbles and such, but most of it is the action and dialogue. And I think I would be able to write for a movie or TV show. I think I can translate what I'm seeing. I tend to write visually anyway,
Right.
and I think I could translate all of that into a movie, into a visual medium. Again, nobody has yet given me the chance to show what I can do.
My mother asks, what is your writing process like?
I start with the basic idea of a storyline. Okay, here is the story I'm going to do. This is going to be, let's start with the original Heir to the Empire. It's a story 5 years after Return of the Jedi. All the movie characters are there. We will add a villain, Grand Admiral Thrawn. We'll add a couple other characters, Mara Jade, Talon Karrde. And this is where they're going to start, and it will work to this is where they're going to end. As I start developing the storyline and adding plot twists and plot points, the characters also start fleshing out. I start seeing what their personalities are like. I start seeing what their abilities, quirks, motivations, loyalties, how all those interact. I start understanding them. I start knowing if I put Mara Jade in this situation, this is how she will react. And the plot and the characters feed off each other. If I have a particular ability, some character, or a particular talent, some character, I add to the character, that can influence how the storyline goes. Or if I have a particularly good plot point or a scene I want to do that requires one of the characters to have a talent or an ability or training, that feeds back into my development of the character. So by the time I finish the outline and ready to start writing, I know a lot of the basic details along the way. All other points, all the details will get filled in as I then write it.
Stephen Alex Wilson says, how do you not get completely caught up with one part of the story? You're writing one or two chapters and then can switch over to another part with different characters in the next chapters and then back and forth.
It's just a matter of knowing how I want to plot it, how the story goes, what things are happening at the same time, so that I need to go back and forth between those characters. Part of it is I don't want to do one character too long before going to the next one. I want to kind of give them more or less equal screen time. So I don't want to spend too much time, say, with Luke before I go back and see what Leia is doing, or what's happening to the Imperials, etc. So it's just a matter of the balance. A lot of that is just the fact I've been doing this for so many years. I've got an instinctive feel for it. I'm pretty sure Tiger Woods doesn't go through the procedure for hitting a golf ball every time he's about to do it. A lot of that is just second nature for him now, and it's second nature to a large extent for me.
Stuart Holcomb said, you mentioned Princess Bride and writing for movies versus books. Where would you place William Goldman among these lines?
Place who?
I just
Oh,
got...
the writer of The Princess Bride.
I
the
believe
book
so.
And the movie.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, he is unique in that he wrote the book and was a screenwriter, so he wrote the screenplay for Princess Bride, the movie as well. So he had abilities and experience in both media and pulled it off very well.
I don't think it would be very difficult, though. However, to transfer even the Thrawn trilogy or any of the other books I've read of yours, for that matter, into a screenplay, because unique with your books compared to any other science fiction book I've ever read, your books are the only ones that actually feel like I'm watching a Star Wars movie. The way you're able to capture that flow of one of the original trilogy films, it feels like I haven't left the theater or my TV screen, because just the flow of it it works so well. You were able to capture the essence of those films almost perfectly, and I think it would be very easy to transition that.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was the goal, to write books that felt like Star Wars. And part of that is the pacing of Star Wars, the interaction of adventure, relationships, humor, world building, all of that. I was trying to fit into the book what we'd already seen in the movies. And I agree. They translated the Thrawn trilogy into comic book form. Dark Horse did that. So yeah, it was easily. I mean, it was doable. They did it. So I think you're right. The books would translate into movie or TV series form. We just have to convince people at Lucasfilm that this is worth doing.
We should start an online petition for that. Ask for about 100,000, maybe 1 million signatures for people to sign up. Maybe put it up there and say, "Hey, let's get this done. Let's at least animate it." You even said yesterday in another discussion that the storyboarding is easy. Just look at the comics, and the work is already done for them, or at least the majority of it.
Or at least the initial jumping off.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think you're being slightly amusing, not entirely serious about the petition as such. You're being entirely.
Oh no, trust me, he's being totally
I'm
serious.
I'm totally serious.
Bear in mind that it's only been, a couple 3 years since 2018, 2016. It's been 2 years since Thrawn came into Rebels. You know that they are watching the reaction to the show. They're watching the reaction to the books, Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances. They are looking at how the fans have reacted. 2 years is not that long to start thinking about, okay, what else can we do with this character? The comic adaptation, Marvel's adaptation of Thrawn as well. We give them time. The fan reaction has been very good, very positive, very gratifying for me, certainly personally. I will keep nudging Lucasfilm, but it's a decision they will have to come up with on their own. But they've got all of the evidence that Thrawn is very popular, and again, as I said yesterday, as long as Thrawn is making them money, they will probably keep him around in some form. Rather like me. If I keep making them money, they will keep me around as well.
I think I'll read this last one, and we'll wrap it up with this. This gentleman needs to get some lunch.
We can keep going till 3. I'm good.
Well, isn't it like just about 3? Oh, 2:50. Well, we'll do a couple more. Tyler says, Mr. Zahn, I just wanted to say Heir to the Empire trilogy is my episodes 7, 8, and 9. Those were the ones that we deserve. Thank you, and thank you very much for Thrawn, one of my top 3 characters from Star Wars.
Thank you.
And then you got dittos and a bunch of likes on here. Joel says, have you ever had the chance to ride the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland? How would you rate the story experience of the attraction?
I've not done the ride. We've seen the stunt spectacular at Disney World, but I've not gotten to Disneyland to do the Indy ride. Someday I'll have to do that. We've done Star Tours many times. Always enjoy doing that, but haven't gotten the Indy ride yet. Really hoping I can get advanced run into the Galaxy's Edge thing. My editor says she's pulling all the strings she can to get us a preview of that, the Batu area. So we'll see if that works, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that as well.
Kyle asks, what starship do you like writing about the most, or what starship would you like to include in the novel? Yeah.
Well, the Falcon has just historical and sentimental sort of things. But if I was having to actually go into some place and do something, I would take an Imperial Star Destroyer. They are, I think, one of the coolest ships out there. I mean, people say, why are you on the Empire side? Well, A, because of Thrawn, and B, the Imperials have the cooler ships and uniforms.
They do.
On the other hand, lightsabers are cool too, so.
I'm trying to find a good one since we're getting short on time. You got a question for him, Bobby?
I asked my questions yesterday.
Well,
And
if
you
you
didn't
don't
see it,
find one, there's one that I get asked periodically we can close with.
I got one. It's from Tyler again. When are you coming over to DC next, Mr. Zahn?
I should be there sometime next year. I've been invited by a convention. I don't know if I've been officially listed on their site yet. We don't want to say anything until all of that is official. But I should be into the DC or the DC area at least once next year. I'm also doing the Southeast. I think I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, Louisville, Chattanooga. None of those are near DC, but keep an eye on my Facebook page. The notes section has the convention listing, and we try to keep that updated as conventions announce.
Cool.
I've got 10 to 13 already scheduled for next year, so I'll be hitting parts of the country a lot.
Do you want to say one last thing about our charity T-shirts before you sign
Charity
off?
T-shirts.
We have one more question real quick. It says, it's from Stephen Alex Wilson. One of the major issues I see in my writing slash my writing is sounding too much like all the stories I've been exposed to in my life. You are so different. How do you not fall into the pattern of them sounding familiar to fables or other tales?
As you work on writing, you will start developing your style and your voice. At the beginning, we all start out sounding like somebody else, but as we fine-tune the writing and how we put words together, your voice starts coming out, and then it will be different for everybody else's. So it's a matter of just keep going with it, keep writing, see what you like about your writing, about other people's writing, and it fine-tunes itself as you continue with more experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this Q&A. I know we've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of viewers on this one. Mr. Zahn will be here from 3 to 4 signing autographs. And just thank you for coming out and being a part of the Order 66 community.
Well, thank you at Order 66 for inviting me. This has been fun. And it's not over yet.
So thank you guys for tuning in yesterday and today. If some of your questions weren't answered, maybe they were answered
got
last
pretty
night
much all of
during
them.
our. Well, I mean, for those who didn't ask, if some of you have questions that might not have been answered, check out our video we did last night. I did a special one-on-one interview with Mr. Zahn while he signed some of your books, and maybe he answered mine/your questions. So be sure to check that out. That's on our page, Order 66 Toys. Mr. Zahn, I think, is going to have a bit of a break here so we can eat some lunch. And then
we're going to go back to signing.
Oh, we're going to go straight back? Well, he's here for one more hour. He'll be signing in the store until 4 p.m. So thanks for coming out this weekend. Thanks for being a part of the celebration with us and Mr. Zahn.
Also, if you are local, when I leave, I will be signing some of their book stock. So if you're local and can't get in today but want an autographed book, drop by in the next few days or weeks, and they should be able to provide you something.
And there you go. So once again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later. We'll see you another time. May the force be with all of you.
I love you guys. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.